Well, hello and welcome to QuickBooks 101. My name is Corinne Hodges. I'm the CEO of the Association of Women's Business Center, a national organization that represents 140 women's business centers across the country. We have a location in every state, with the exception of Alaska. And hopefully, we'll be announcing one coming soon there. We even have 3 women's business centers in Puerto Rico. And so you can find a women's business center at awbc.org. You'll see the link to find a women's business center there. We'd love for you to get connected. What makes women's business centers successful was they're providing counseling and training to their clients, primarily to women. 70% of our clients are women, is the partnerships that we've been able to create. So we have national partners like QuickBooks. QuickBooks, the product from the company of Intuit, and we've got a couple of key players from QuickBooks, and I'd like to talk about them in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you why we're doing this session today on QuickBooks 101. I'm actually in the car opening up this webinar today, hot off of a meeting with the Small Business Administration. And if you're in business, and you were during the onset of the COVID pandemic, you know that SBA's PPP loans were one really important relief effort that came out of the CARES Act. And what we saw was women were left behind. Women were left behind primarily, or I should say, over and above any other demographic. And one of the key reasons that women were not successful in obtaining funding as quickly was because they weren't ready with their financial records. And QuickBooks is such a convenient, such an easy tool to use. And so we'll be talking about QuickBooks Online for that very reason. And it was pointed out that since I'm doing today's session from the car, we are all moving. And if you're in small business, you're moving all the time and you need something accessible. And that brings me right down to today's session, why it's so important that we have partners like Intuit offering QuickBooks tools. And so I want to thank Karina Liriano from our team for helping to pull today's session together, but also Anna Kipley, who's managed the relationship with us with QuickBooks. And then, also Mariette Martinez, who's really kind of the star of the show, and she's going to be doing the rest of the talking for today. Today's session is going to be available on demand, and you'll have access to all of the resources and materials. We know you're going to ask lots of great questions today. This is for you, so make sure that you get out of today's session everything that you need. We're certainly grateful to Intuit and to the QuickBooks product for helping us make this possible today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Corinne always has such an amazing way to start our sessions. Truly, I love it. It just brings in the why. And I think many times, even when maybe the why seems more surface based, well, I'm here to learn QuickBooks, but you're probably here because you are building a business and that's important to you. And you want to use the tools to be able to help you, move faster. As Corinne mentioned, I love that. I love the fact that she shared this wherever she was at, because when you can use technology and leverage technology to move faster and to create efficiencies, what it truly does is gives you back time to do what you really love to do. Many of us, we can agree that at first it's because, and it is our business, but of course it's so much more than that. Most of the time it's being with our loved ones, having free time and having just free space and the freedom to do whatever we want and choose to do. So thank you, Corinne, as always, for starting us so beautifully. As you can see, I will be sharing my screen, but today will be a little different. I'll also be jumping into QuickBooks Online quite a bit because it is a QuickBooks Online demonstration in addition to, a 101 class. So I'm going to be sharing some tools on how you could either follow along or take a look at this after as well. I really want you to choose your best learning style to go through today's session. But first and foremost, just so we can save Karina some finger space today, is what are you going to get out of this course? Well, today's class, as Corinne said, it's for you. So we like to bring our A game. We like to bring as much value as possible. And I don't want you to ever feel overwhelmed if we do bring a lot. So that's why I'm so grateful that Our team here does provide this as an on-demand replay afterwards, so you'll be able to watch this afterwards. You'll also have resources for this particular session. You'll have handouts as well, and then you will have an exercise that Karina will go ahead and drop in, and this one will be pretty much the only exercise if you want to either have it up as a PDF fillable and you could fill it out, or if you want really quickly, if you can print it, if you do have a printer in your office or in your space, because we will do a little bit of fun interaction today as well. Okay, so let's get started. QBO 101, my name is Mariette Martinez, and as Corinne mentioned, I am part of really the team here. So I have been teaching QuickBooks and working as an accounting, bookkeeping, and tax professional for over 2 decades now. And really where my transformation happened is when I can partner with community leaders and small business champions like the business centers and like Intuit to truly create more massive impact and influence and spread this awareness and education with all of you. And that's why after almost 2 decades serving small business owners, I have transitioned from practitioner to educator, and you can learn more about me at masterbooks.com. So I want everyone to take a moment now, and over the next 55-ish minutes, just imagine that you are sitting in front of a certified QuickBooks ProAdvisor, and that is important because you want to make sure you're sitting in front of someone that is, has created some expertise and has some knowledge of the technical side of QuickBooks. And now you're sitting in front of him or her, and let's say her for this particular scenario, and you're ready to get your top 3 questions answered. And these are the top 3 questions I have been asked over the 2+ decades that I have been serving small business owners, and that I have also been a certified QuickBooks ProAdvisor. So the first one is, how will QuickBooks help me build my accounting system? So QuickBooks is an amazing technology tool. It's the opportunity for you to leverage technology to build your systems in your business. So what are those systems? Those systems are accounting related, they're bookkeeping related. So you have to make that connection between how QuickBooks is really the core of your system and then how you build out your accounting system based on the unique needs of your business. So that is really the most important question to understand. How does QuickBooks help me? Like in Jerry Maguire, help me help you, right? So let's make sure you know what you need so QuickBooks can help you. The next one is, how do I even choose which version is right for me? This one's super important because when you start getting excited about QuickBooks, as you can tell, I get very excited about QuickBooks. So when you get excited about QuickBooks, you start realizing that there's different versions of QuickBooks, and you need to make sure you feel comfortable with the version that you're choosing. And by all means, if you don't, remember, imagine you're sitting in front of a ProAdvisor that can hold your hand and walk you through this, or maybe even an advisor here at the business center that can walk you through this choice. And then last but not least, how do I navigate confidently throughout the system? So how do I feel comfortable around the QuickBooks system? And that's what we're going to actually cover today. QuickBooks as the core of your accounting system, the different versions of QuickBooks, and then navigating QuickBooks. All right. So I'm super excited to get into that with you as well. Just to always like to mention, we are really grateful to have Karina, and we may even have Anna with us for a little while. She's obviously part of the QuickBooks team, so she's definitely going to be one of those that you can ask questions to. So if you have any questions throughout this entire session, please feel free to go into the actual Q&A and ask specific questions, or you can just stay interactive in the chat if things are coming up for you, you want to share with one another. We really love that engagement as well. And I haven't had a chance to look at the chat, which I won't do unless I'm stopping to take a breather or to answer questions. So I'm sure Karina has already dropped the link to that exercise though in there if you want to go quickly print that out. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started with QuickBooks as the core. So what do I mean by QuickBooks being the core? Imagine QuickBooks as the home where you're going to house your accounting system. It's basically the home and the core of your operations, and it includes core functions and features that you can use to build out your accounting system. Now, I know that seems like a lot. You're like, okay, so it's the core of my accounting system. So it's a tool, but what are all the different things it can do? Well, guess what? Today, you will learn all the different things it can do. And of course, it can do a lot more. I'm giving you the core functions of QuickBooks. But as I start bringing up the things it could do, what I want it to feel to you is like, oh, okay, I can do that then, and I can do that. And then we're going to go through an exercise to really open that up even further, okay? So let's get started. QuickBooks as the core. So it's this core, it's that circle, it's your heart, it's your soul for your accounting system, right? And then where do you go from there? Well, most of the time, if not all the time, people think about QuickBooks as the general ledger system for your business. So every business needs an accounting bookkeeping system, a way for them to track their money in and their money out, which essentially is your general ledger transactions, all the transactions that are hitting your chart of accounts, from your balance sheet accounts to your income statement accounts. So basically all of your accounts in your chart of accounts are associated to something called the general ledger, and all of those transactions are getting hit in the ledger and ultimately living on a financial statement, whether it's your profit and loss or income statement or your balance sheet. And so that's the first thing people think about. Oh, I know what QuickBooks is. It's an accounting system. So that way I can go ahead and put my transactions in there, my money in and my money out, and be able to figure and see my profitability for my business. Absolutely. At its most essential, function, it should do that. Any accounting system has to be a general ledger system. And so absolutely, that is a key component of using QuickBooks. You also can do that we call them the 4 R's. You can review your data, you can reconcile your data, you can report your data, and then you can even enter in your receipts, so that way you can keep track of your data. So of course, accounting systems should be able to track your transactions and also the documentation around it. So absolutely, that is a core component of QuickBooks. As you start building out QuickBooks, though, then you can start seeing the other things it does. For instance, you can keep track of all your sales transactions. Now we're specifically talking about the transactions related to your customers. So when your customers are having transactions with you, and there's many transactions a customer could have with you. Initially, it could be maybe a prospective customer and you're doing estimates with them. And then that estimate turns into an invoice, and then you send them an invoice. You're going to receive payments from them. You're going to document that payment, and it's going to go into a deposit into one of your bank accounts. Those are all customer related transactions that would be found in the customer area, which we'll share in a few moments. And so those are all the type of things that are happening in the customer area, the customer center. They're referred to as centers in QuickBooks Online. But something that many people don't understand or are even aware of is that in the customer area, it's actually already a customer relationship management system. It's already also known as a CRM. It's already a CRM being built out for you because you're putting in so much customer information in there that it can already be your customer relationship management system, or at least the first version of it before you decide you need a bigger system to manage your customer database. Many people don't realize that. Now let's go ahead and turn the board around. Let's imagine we're on a round table and I turn over to the left here. I was just talking about customers. What about my vendors? What about the people that I pay to? So business owners get paid by customers and pay vendors. So vendors also need their own database. We need to track when we pay our vendors. We need to track how we pay our vendors, whether it's just an expense, we just pay them a check. Maybe we use our credit cards for that. Maybe we pay them in payments. Maybe we have terms, meaning we have a bill and we're able to pay that over time. And so just as we have to manage customer transactions, we have to manage vendor transactions. And just like the customer area, we can track customer information. In the vendor area, we can track vendor information. So I don't really think this is a term, but it's kind of like a vendor relationship management system, a VRM. I'm pretty sure that's not a thing. But if it was, it's a vendor relationship management system because you can keep track of your vendor information in there. Very important that if your vendor is a service provider and you may have some 1099 compliance related to those vendor payments, it's super important that you're keeping track of that vendor information because you may need to file 1099s at the end of the year and send that to the recipients and also send it to the government. So that's when it's super critical that when you're paying a vendor, that's also a 1099 contractor, that you have a system where you can keep track of all of this information. Next is advanced features. So as you start building out these features and you start putting in your general ledger data, which is basically your money in and money out, you start capturing your customers and your vendor information, you start realizing you can actually have advanced reporting inside of your system. Why? Because you're putting the right data in the system. We don't want garbage in, garbage out, because garbage in means reporting out will be garbage. So we never want that. But if we actually have this kind of awareness before we even start putting our data in the system, then we're going to be so much more mindful about how we're going to track our money in and money out. How are we going to track the customer information? How are we going to track the vendor information? And knowing all of this, we can have some amazing reports get pulled out of the system. Of course, let's go back to the basics. I should probably have a number one there too. What else is a accounting system, specifically QuickBooks Online today, super important to provide to every business owner and user that uses it? Compliance, right? You need to be able to use a system that takes the weight off of you, that lets you sleep at night, meaning it should be able to provide you the information to stay compliant year round. File your payroll taxes if you have employees, file your sales taxes if you have a sales compliance liability, file any other tax related to your business, and of course, be able to provide those reports for you to eventually get to your tax return. That's super important and obviously critical to having an accounting system that works. That's super important. And then as you build your business, you can also see QuickBooks as an opportunity to track your entire team. So based on how you're building your business, everybody is building their business differently. Your team could be contractors. So tracking, again, those contractor payments, tracking the contractor information under the vendor center, because remember, contractors are vendors. Or if you have employees, then you can use the employee related features like payroll and time tracking to be able to track employee information. And so that is super important. And so if you think about it, it's also an employee relationship management system. I'm just making up things here because I'm sure there's not something as an ERM, or maybe there is, but you can also track your employee information in there as well. Okay. All right, everyone. So there may be questions that came up. Please ask them in the Q&A. Again, you may have never seen QuickBooks like that before. I know many times when I teach this, because I'm kind of the only one that I know that kind of teaches it from that core component, they're like, wow, I didn't know QuickBooks did all that. First of all, that's awesome if that's how you're feeling. Second of all, ask questions if that's coming up for you. As Corinne mentioned early on, this is for you. So ask your questions, and then we're going to get into a really cool exercise. But before we do, let me take a moment here. Karina just turned on her camera, so maybe she's got some questions for me. So do you want to bring anything up before we move forward, Karina?
Yes, Mariette, I'll interrupt you for 1 second. We have a question about nonprofits. Do nonprofits have vendors?
Yes. So it's a really good question. And the way I'm going to answer it's this. So depending on your industry, you can name the different areas in QuickBooks differently. So when you actually use QuickBooks Online as a nonprofit organization, you can change the actual name. So many times you wouldn't have customers, you'd have donors, right? And so what's super important is if you are a nonprofit and you're not aware of those features, those naming conventions that you can do in QuickBooks, please connect with a ProAdvisor, because there are ProAdvisors, which is really awesome, that specialize in different industries or even government versus non-government, nonprofit versus profit. And in just an hour or a couple hours, they'll do all that setup for you. But to answer it easily, yes, you can change the names inside of QuickBooks. Okay, so I think that's probably the only official question that we have. Awesome. I'm going to look in the chat real quick. Okay, it looks like Karina was dropping the exercise, so that's awesome as well. So I'm going to close everything, and hopefully everybody, if you want, just really quickly in the chat, go ahead and maybe say, I'm good, because I want to make sure you all got the exercises in front of you, and let's go ahead and have some fun. So let's go start building out our accounting systems together. So as you can see there, I'm doing a little shout out. Grab your handouts, go ahead and do some fun work here. Remember, everyone, don't overthink this, okay? For you to take action, we want you to just get it done. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a fillable PDF. So if you don't have time to print it out, you can actually have it up on something and just start typing in that if you want to do that as well. Okay, so let's keep going. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through exactly what I just did right now, but I'm actually going to go ahead and go a little bit faster and just bring up the idea again. And I want you to just write down whatever comes up for you when I bring it up. Okay, y'all ready? Let's do this. Okay. So the first thing is a general ledger. What type of things do you think you need to actually create a system that is keeping track of your money in and money out? If you can have an accounting system, or if something came up to you that you said, oh, I didn't realize QuickBooks does that, go ahead and put it in this section right here on the top. How are you going to use QuickBooks Online to manage your money in and money out? It can be something as simple as, oh, I'm going to connect my bank now. I'm going to connect my credit cards. I'm going to be able to reconcile at the end of the month and be able to see that my money from my bank and my money transactions to my credit card actually match what's inside of my books, my general ledger. I'm going to be able to start using the receipts, and I'm going to go ahead and capture receipts and make sure that I can sleep at night, because source documentation is key to keep yourself audit proof. So think about those things. I'm literally only going to give you guys all about 30 seconds per area here so we can keep going. So how are you going to use the core functions of QuickBooks Online to track your income, to track your expenses, to track your transactions related to your assets, liabilities, and equity, and to track your profitability? Go ahead and just write it down right now. Think through it. Even if you do this already, why don't you write it down? And then afterwards, you could possibly share in the chat what you wrote down for this area. Okay, I'm just going to give you like 15 seconds. All right, next. Sales and accounts receivable. Imagine being able to keep track of all your customer information in the customer database, their names, their numbers, their addresses, maybe you have a customer number for them, a reference number. Maybe you have a contract with every single customer, and you want to attach that contract inside of the customer data. Maybe they have sales tax compliance around the sales to this particular customer. Maybe they have a sales tax number you have to track. All of that information. Think about it right now. What would you ideally want to track for all of your customers? Reference numbers. Maybe you want to separate your customers in different types, commercial versus residential customers. Write it down right down in that area. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds, everyone. We're going to go fast here. Okay. Expenses, accounts payable, job costing. Think about being able to track your jobs by vendors, the people that help you. Remember, the vendors are the people that help you in your business, not necessarily your employees. Okay, these are the contractors you come in and help you out with the job. These are the vendors you buy materials and supplies from. Maybe you do purchase orders where you have to purchase a batch of materials. You have to create an order for that first, then you turn it into a bill. Maybe you've always wanted to be able to pay your bills right out of an accounting system. By the way, you can do that. So be able to pay your bills out of an accounting system. You want to be able to track your expenses, because there are some really important opportunities to build profitability by saving on your expenses. Meaning if you track your expenses, you can see where those leaks are, and you can see where you can kind of keep control and take more control of that spending out there. If you have an opportunity to have a place where you can track all of those expenses, what does that look like for you? Write it down. Okay, give you about 6 seconds for this one. Okay, so this one's going to be a little faster because you may not really know what kind of reports are out there, but just maybe write down a couple of reports that come up for you. What would be an ideal report? Maybe sales by customer, sales by rep. So how much does each one of your rep bring in sales? Maybe you want to be able to see your business departmentalized. So in my case, I do speaking and I create content. Maybe I want to departmentalize my business and have a report to show me profitability from every time I do public speaking like this versus when I create my own content for Master Books and my sales over there on my courses. So what would be some really key reports that you can create inside of an accounting system? And if you want to go even bigger, what kind of metrics would you want to be able to see on these reports, everybody? Again, get it all out. And if this seems a little bit like, I don't know, that's okay. Just write down whatever comes up for you. Okay, these next ones should be pretty simple, right? Staying compliant. So what would you want your accounting system to be able to allow you to do in regards to staying compliant? Be able to file my taxes, be able to file my payroll taxes, be able to know how much I need to pay myself, right? In payroll, and then maybe how much I need to put aside for taxes. What would be ideal? What would help you sleep at night? When it comes to compliance, which is when many people usually search out an accountant, is that they want to be able to feel compliant, like they're being responsible when it comes to their bookkeeping and taxes. What are those things that are important to you? What would you want to see in an accounting system and in this accounting system, so that way you can feel like it is helping you stay compliant? And then last but not least, tracking your team. So what type of things would you do in here to track your team? Again, I mentioned earlier, you can use this for tracking your employees, their time, their payroll. You can use this for tracking contractors and 1099 compliance. So what type of things come up for you when you start thinking about building a team? Okay, everyone, a thumbs up. Thumbs up. Again, a lot of people that have gone through this, they have aha moments. And I know this was fast. I usually do this over a 90-minute workshop and I have people share afterwards. But I wanted to bring it here to this masterclass today, because even though it was super fast compared to how I usually do it with my small business community, I think it still creates awareness that you can take time to pull this out and do it yourself. And just so you know, I have an awesome freebie for everybody as well. I actually have a free masterclass on Master Books that's called QBO Must Knows. You can just go to masterbooks.com and click on QBO Must Knows. And I actually do this entire thing again, much slower. You also have that same PDF on there. So you can watch this again. And you can also, of course, watch this replay when it's available. So thank you all for playing with us today. Now, again, I am going to move on, but before I do, let me bring my owl in here. She's my sweet little owl that likes to check in on cues. I think we have a cue. Karina, do you want to read that one out to us?
Sure. I love that owl, by the way. Okay, so we have another question. It's, when do you recommend businesses to start using QuickBooks? Should a business with a single customer making, let's say, 100K a year, a good fit for QuickBooks? What numbers would you say based on customers, revenue, etc.?
I love that question. Let's bring that up again at the end because I think it may be answered, at least it will definitely be somewhat answered when we cover the versions of QuickBooks. But if you have more questions around it, maybe more will come up, or you can rewrite that question based on what you learn right now, because we're actually going to go deeper right now in regards to when you would choose one version over the other and the type of business you are now versus maybe 2 or 3 years from now, you would actually kind of grow into different versions of QuickBooks. So actually, you just keyed us up perfectly, by the way. I don't know what your name was because I'm not looking at the chat, but thank you for that, because that was a perfect key into the next session we're doing now, the next lesson. So let's get into that. So we're going to go over now QuickBooks versions. And you can see I get all excited. I even rub my hands together. So QuickBooks versions. So what I really want you to understand here, and just kind of take a breather, because we just did this whole like, get your mind, write it down. What would I want my ideal QuickBooks to look like? That's super exciting. But now let's actually kind of see the growth of a business when they're using QuickBooks. And that's kind of where I want you all to kind of sit in over the next few minutes. So first, we want to go over the different subscriptions of QuickBooks. And when we do that, we want to talk about the fact that there's multiple subscriptions. So let's make sure we feel very comfortable with what each one is. So over here on the far left, and I'm going to call them all she's, I don't really call them it's. So she's kind of intentionally over there on the left. And this is QuickBooks Self-Employed. So QuickBooks Self-Employed is a version of a QuickBooks web-based tool. Now, it's not the QuickBooks Online suite. Very important that you understand that. I got to be very clear. QuickBooks Self-Employed is its own web-based version tool. And then you have the QuickBooks Online suite that you basically can graduate from one version to another. QuickBooks Self-Employed was developed and launched in 2014. I was very excited when it was launched because it was literally launched and designed for the 1099 contractor that's really building a business just on their own. They are solopreneur that's just on their own. They don't really see themselves even having multiple clients, maybe one or two clients. And many times, if not most of the time, they actually have a W-2 wage earner job as well. So this is, I would say, many people call them the side hustle. The reason why is because they have a wage earner job. They may be doing really well there, but they have a side hustle on the weekends or in the evenings. So QuickBooks Self-Employed was developed for them to be able to manage that side hustle money on the side that's coming in, and essentially being able to create a profit and loss statement, which is a Schedule C for the US IRS tax form. It's the 1040 IRS tax form. And as a sole proprietorship, you would file a Schedule C alongside that. And basically, QuickBooks Self-Employed helps you create that Schedule C form to be able to file with your tax professional. Now, what's really important is because it's based on just a Schedule C 1099 contractor, it's not a full general ledger tool. It doesn't have the full chart of accounts. It doesn't have all the features that you would need in a general accounting system, because this 1099 contractor, this side hustler, really just needs to track their money in and money out related to that side hustle so they can prepare their Schedule C. So it's awesome because it allows you to prepare your Schedule C. It also allows you to export data into Excel, which is basically how I've been helping my 1099 contractors for over 20 years, is creating an Excel spreadsheet with all their money in and money out. Well, it does that for you based on the data coming in from the bank. And it also allows you to have an accountant connect to the account and see this data and essentially help you prepare your Schedule C. Or you could even connect it right to TurboTax and do all this by yourself. So that's really what QuickBooks Self-Employed is. So again, what it's really important for you to understand, it's not the QuickBooks Online suite, and it doesn't have the functionalities of a general ledger system. Okay. So service provider that doesn't need all of the bells and whistles of a general ledger system, side hustler, 1099 contractor, that would be the ideal customer user for this system. Now let's go ahead and bring in the rest of the QuickBooks Online solution. It's 4 versions of the QuickBooks Online solution. We're going to start with the core 3, then we're going to end with the last one, okay? The core 3, this has been the QuickBooks Online solution for at least a decade, if not more. So this is how you graduate inside of QuickBooks Online. You can start in Simple Start, which is the very first one here. And in Simple Start, basically what you're doing is you are a solo-based business. You are by yourself doing your own bookkeeping and accounting that needs a full general ledger system to do your accounting, to do your bookkeeping, to keep your compliant. And then you can turn on some of the features that you would need as you're growing. Of course, in this one, you have to have the basic general ledger tools. So you have to invoice your customers usually, right? You need to get paid. So you can turn on QuickBooks payments to get paid electronically. You can do invoices in here. You can even turn on payroll in here. But the key understanding is that you're all by yourself. So it's only one user, but you can add an accountant in there to help you with your QuickBooks accounting inside of the system. So usually I don't see many people in the system because usually they go right into essentials. I'll share that in a moment. Because most of the time it's not usually just you. Maybe it's you and your partner. Maybe it's you and one assistant that's helping you. And so you usually need at least 2 users to access the system. And so many people will go right into essentials. Another reason why someone would go from Simple Start to essentials, and this is super important, is that Simple Start has accounts receivable, but it doesn't have accounts payable. So you can't track that vendor information like the bills and the bill payments and all of that vendor transaction related to having full accounts payable. And so that alone is a reason why someone would say, okay, well, I need something to track both accounts receivable and accounts payable. Okay. And another big reason why someone would just jump right into essentials is because they need multiple users. It's not just them. Maybe it's 2 or 3 of them. So they need 3 users. And of course, their accountants can come in. And so in this case, you can have up to 3 users using the system or accessing the system. And you always have 2 accountants. We'll talk about that in a moment. And so essentials is really where many, if not all, my clients start. Also, the pricing is pretty close. And so they're just like, no, that doesn't make sense. I feel really good in essentials. So I'm going to go click in essentials. Now, when you're in essentials, you have a full general ledger system, accounts receivable, accounts payable. You can turn on the bells and whistles, the payroll, sales taxes, all of that good stuff. What ends up happening though with essentials, why someone would ever choose Plus, this is very important, is essentials is service-based. And so if you're selling inventory, okay, you need to turn on the inventory function, and that only happens in the Plus version. So that's when people would actually usually go to Plus, is to actually do 2 things. As you can see here, they can track their inventory, which is very important. Also, they have more users. They have up to 5 users. And there are some more robust reports in there, to be perfectly honest, because Plus forever until about 3 to 4 years ago was the top tier of QuickBooks Online, okay? And so now let's kind of go ahead and look at this just for a moment. So if you can see, Simple Start and Essentials would be that service-based business requiring accounts receivable, accounts payable, being able to turn on several of the bells and whistles. Other than they can't turn on inventory, they'd actually have to move over to Plus to turn on inventory and basically get more user access and more reporting. And most just stay there at Plus, by the way. Most of my clients have stayed in Plus unless they are a growing, scaling enterprise. And that's when they move into Advanced. That's actually why Advanced was designed for that growing enterprise that needs to serve the business owner that's growing, that has, more than 10, 15, 20 employees. They're using like very advanced type of features in QuickBooks Online that many times you'd have to add apps to do that. So now instead of adding apps, QuickBooks Advanced essentially created this core system that has all of those advanced features and functionalities. And so if a business already knows that they're at that level, they will just skip to the end and basically subscribe to Advanced. And of course, it's a monthly subscription. So all of these are paid monthly. Okay. The last thing I want to share about your versions is, okay, wow. So it does a lot. Is there something that, or are there versions that like do some things and don't do some things? Or how can I still really define what each version does? So I actually created this because I think it's so important for you to understand that there are some features that are in all the versions, but there's still a way and strategy to choose the best version. So in all your versions, you can track your income and expenses. You can track your mileage, by the way. You have mobile and web-based access. You can use the snap photo feature so you can capture receipts. You can connect unlimited banks and credit cards. You can do simple invoicing, of course, based on how you graduate to the next levels. You can do more robust invoicing, estimates, purchase orders. That's going to be in the QuickBooks Online suite, getting closer to Essentials and Plus. And then you can always have up to 2 accountants. Now, what I mean by that is accountants sometimes that word is used in a misleading way. So I want to be really honest and upfront. So accounting professionals in general, okay, if we use a general word, is someone that can help you with your bookkeeping, could possibly help you with your accounting, possibly even with your taxes, or all 3 of them, based on their qualifications, on their designations, on their background. You'd have to understand that to see how qualified they are to help you in the different areas of your business. Now, QuickBooks uses the word Intuit accountants, and it's so important that you understand that that doesn't mean they're an accounting professional or they can do all 3 things. They're basically someone that has become very comfortable and created an expertise in the QuickBooks products, and they provide some type of accounting service. So that's very important. If they are those kind of people, they can go ahead and collaborate inside of your system and help you with your system. Okay. But what will determine truly the best QuickBooks version for you? Well, let's go back to the basics, what we talked about. Do you require a full general ledger system? If the answer is yes, then you can't use QuickBooks Self-Employed. Let's just keep it simple. If you require a full general ledger system, then you're going to use the QuickBooks Online suite and choose from there. What is your entity type? Someone asked an awesome question about nonprofit. So a nonprofit would definitely be in the QuickBooks Online suite, but now they can choose which version is best for them. Do you sell products? Well, then if you want to turn on inventory, you know you're going to be either in Plus or Advanced. Are you needing a scalable system? So if you know for sure you need 5 or more, then you're going to choose Plus or Advanced, because Essentials only provides you 3 users, right? So those are the kind of things you're going to think about when you're choosing your system. Okay. So hopefully that was helpful to everyone. I'm just going to go ahead and see. Sometimes things come up there when we go through that and really pull out the versions and how to choose one or the other. I don't see any questions about that. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. If you have any thoughts about that and how you chose your version of QuickBooks, feel free to throw that in the chat. I'd love to share sometimes what you all have done to be able to do this process as well. If you've used an advisor or a ProAdvisor or an advisor from the centers to help you, please let one another know that. Like, that is key. If you use the Women Business Centers to help you with this, please share that with one another, because that's super awesome information as well. Okay, since I don't see any QuickBooks related questions at this point, I'm going to keep going and we're going to get into navigation now. Okay, so QuickBooks navigation. I love this because what I want to do is I want to put you all on the same playing field as when you're speaking to that friend. Remember, we talked about that certified pro advisor that, she's using language like centers and like the left navigation and like the gear and like the grid gear. And you're like, okay, what are you talking about? Seriously, let's speak the same lingo here. So I want to spend the next, 15-ish minutes or 10 minutes. I'll leave some time for questions as well, if there's any last questions, in regards to getting the lingo together. Okay. And the best way to do that is to actually get into QuickBooks Online. And so what I want to show you really quickly here is that when I go into QuickBooks Online, everybody on the planet, literally, I'm not exaggerating, can access what's called, of course, if they don't have internet, they can't, but everyone can access what's called the QuickBooks test drives. And so I want to show this to you really quickly here. If I go into, I want to make sure I'm opening the right one. Okay. So if you just go on to Google and excuse me, if you just go to Google and you search QBO test drive, you will be able to jump into a test version of QuickBooks. Now, the way this works, it's essentially, we call it a sandbox. So talking about lingo, you'll hear that. It's a sandbox where people can open up a real QuickBooks Online file, play in there and see what all the functions and the features look like. Now, this gets cleared up every single day. So don't try to go back the next day and say, oh, I want to show someone how I calculated this and how the report came out this way. No, it's going to look completely different the next day because they clean out the data and start from scratch every single day. It's just a place to play. You can go ahead and do QBO test drive to search it out. That's the easiest way. I also like to share on my website, mariettemartinez.com, under Get QuickBooks. I actually just save them right there, the 3 links, because of the fact that so many people can't find them. And so I just say, go to mariettemartinez.com, click on Get QuickBooks, which is here under my partners Intuit. You can access 3 different versions of the QuickBooks. That's why I wanted to share here. You can access the main version, which is literally the plus version. You can access the advanced version and see what it's like to be in the full advanced test drive, or you can even access the QuickBooks Self-Employed. So this is very valuable if you want to go in there and play around. Okay, we're going to go ahead and access the test drive. You're going to see how it works. It's going to give you the I'm not a robot. Yes, I'm not a robot. I'm going to continue here, and I'm going to jump into QuickBooks. So here I am. I'm in QuickBooks now. And so this is the first thing you do to start navigating inside QuickBooks. When you start navigating inside QuickBooks, you're going to start seeing, and this is super important, everyone. Most people don't realize this, especially if your ProAdvisor has never told you before. When you actually start going into QuickBooks, your version, which is called your user interface, your UI, will look different than what your accountant sees. Let me say that again. This is very important. When you go into QuickBooks, your UI, your user interface, will look different than what your accountant sees. And the reason why is because as an accountant, to be honest, we see more things because we do more analytics on your books. And if we provide you bookkeeping and accounting services, there's more work that we need to do for you. So we have more features, more functions, more views than you do. We're trying to keep your view very simple and very bookkeeping focused. And so when you come in here for the first time, you're going to see your dashboard and you're going to see this, what's called the left navigation toolbar. That's the left nav. You hear that a lot, the left nav. Once you learn the left nav, you pretty much have learned the entire system. The left navigation allows you to go through what are called the centers inside of QuickBooks. So each one of these areas, you see how I'm slowly clicking on these areas, and then these tabs open up here on the right. Those are called centers. And so this is the banking center, the sales center, the expense center, the report center. And as you click on a tab, so I'm going to show you this right now. Let's click on the sales center. There's 2 things you can do. You can actually click here directly to go to one of the tabs that's in the full center. Or if I just click on sales like this opened up the entire center for me. And here are the tabs. And you know that you're in the right tabs because you see this green little line here. This green little line here tells me that I'm in the correct tab. So this is the same tabs that you see here lined up as columns, or you can click on the tabs right here on your right-hand side. And so what's important is as you start going down the left navigation toolbar, you're going to start seeing the same concept. That's the beauty of QuickBooks Online, is that it's the same concept throughout the entire system. So if I click on expenses, then on expenses, I'm going to click on, let's say, this one tab that says expenses, and it's going to take me straight to the expense tab. If I click on vendors, it's going to take me to the vendor tab. So again, I'm not going to go into every center because that could be an entire class on its own. Maybe we need to let the team know that we need a whole class in just on the centers, but that's essentially how you navigate the centers. Okay. So now let's keep going and let's actually look at, so we checked that out, right? We checked out the left navigation. Now let's go into the plus new. So what's important for you to know about the plus new is that once you learn the centers, this is very important. Once you learn the centers, then you can quickly do different transactions inside of QuickBooks Online. And so let me show you what I mean by that. So let's go ahead and click inside of the plus new. And what the plus new is going to allow me to do, it's going to allow me to quickly do a transaction inside of QuickBooks Online. So for instance, once I understand that the customer center is where I do all my customer transactions, and that in the customer center, I can create invoices, I can create estimates, I can do a credit memo, I can receive a payment from a customer. Once I understand all the transactions that are related to a customer, then I can use the plus new to just quickly do it. So I'm like, okay, I already know that when I have a customer and I want to invoice them, I can go to sales I can go to the customers and the invoices area, or I can just click on plus new and just create an invoice. That's it. I can do that really easily now. So again, the process first is to understand the left navigation and everything it does there. And then you use the plus new to quickly get to the places that you need to inside of QuickBooks Online. And so again, plus new is your quick way to create transactions, new transactions in QuickBooks. That's why it's called a plus new. The other thing I want to show you before I move from here is that, do you see how these are in columns? So you see customers, vendors, employees, and other. They are trying to provide you there that same concept of there are workflows in QuickBooks where you actually do things for your customers, you do things for your vendors, you do things for your employees, and then you do other things inside of QuickBooks Online. So it's putting it already in a column based on the bookkeeping workflow related to QuickBooks. So for instance, other, when it says you can do a journal entry and it's under the other column, the reason why it's not under the customer, employee, or vendor column is that journal entries can be done for any type of transaction in QuickBooks. It's not customer, vendor, or employee related, it's bookkeeping related. And so that's why it's in the other column, because it really relates to the entire general ledger system and not necessarily one of the workflows related to customer, vendors, or employees. So that's just something I wanted to share with you, because then you can say, oh, so why isn't bank deposit under customers? Well, you can do bank deposits for many reasons. It's not only to collect customer payments. You can add a bank deposit because you just got a loan for loan proceeds. We know that that's not related to customers, right? And so because of that, it's in this other column and not in the customer column. Okay. Again, feel free to ask your questions if things are coming up for you. The next thing we wanted to look at is getting things done. Now, this one's super fun. And so I'm not going to go too much deep into it, but the idea behind the getting things done is, and I want to bring it up real quick. Where is it? I lost it for a second. There it is. So the idea behind the getting things done, it's over here on your dashboard. And it's, if you can see, it's the second tab. It's the first tab in a 2-tab format. So there's getting things done, and then there's business overview. So getting things done and then business overview. In getting things done, what it does, and I'm looking there to make sure I'm showing it to you correctly. This is a roadmap on how to navigate inside of QuickBooks Online. And so basically, if you go into getting things done, it's telling you, are you trying to do transactions related to money in? Then this is probably your workflow for you. Are you trying to do transactions related to money out? Then this is your workflow for you. Are you trying to just track your accounting and look at some reports? Then go ahead and take a look at this workflow. Now, what's important is as you start opening features in QuickBooks Online, this getting things done page will grow with you. It will literally build out as you're starting to turn on different functions and features in QuickBooks Online. Now, not to bring up like old school, but back 20 plus years ago when I was using QuickBooks Desktop, which I used, for my clients back in the 90s all the way until the early 2000s, they had a homepage just like this. And for many, many years, we were asking the QuickBooks team, bring back the homepage. It's so cool. It allows business owners to see a cool workflow on how to go from start to finish. And that's basically what this is. The other tab, just really quickly, is an overview of how your business is doing. This is really the beginning of starting to see your metrics in your business. Okay, let's go back. And then the gear. So what's really important is when you are working through QuickBooks, you're going to hear all the time about the gears. So here on the top is actually they call it the gear settings. Some people call it the mama gear, because if you actually go inside of, let's look at customers, or we can do here, this is fine. We look at invoices. So when we go to invoices, do you see how you have a little grid gear right here? It's called the grid gear. But many of us like to call it the baby gear, because it essentially is an additional gear that allows you to turn on additional columns and settings inside of QuickBooks when you're in what's called the grid gear view. So the grid gear view is a view that looks like a grid, right? Many of us feel like it's like a spreadsheet view. And if you have a grid gear view, then you're going to have a grid gear that you can open up and look at the settings and edit those settings. But the main mama gear, the main gear for all of your account settings for the entire QuickBooks Online is going to be here on the top. That's the top right gear. And that's where you're going to see, again, that idea of having columns on the different ways and areas that you can edit the settings and, very important, turn on features on and off inside of QuickBooks Online. And I'll just show you that because that's super important in regards to some of the main settings inside of QuickBooks Online can turn on and off under what's called the account and settings area. And this is also built out with a left-hand navigation where you can click through the left-hand navigation and learn all the different areas and how you can turn features on and off. So many times, even if you're in, let's say, the essentials or the plus, and you're like, hey, I thought I had that feature. I actually bought this subscription so I can have access to this feature, and you don't see it. Guys, don't get worried. Go to your gear icon here on the top right, click on account and settings, and you probably have to turn it on be able to see it. Many times that's related to, let's say, projects or bills or estimates, things like that, that you necessarily don't want on all at once. You want to kind of start turning those on as you learn how to use them. Those will by default be turned off, and then you'll go to accountant settings and turn them on. And by the way, this is a perfect time to just say, when in doubt, Google it. Google, why isn't this QuickBooks Online turned on? And I bet you 99% of the times it's going to say, go to account and settings and turn it on, because that's usually how it works. Okay. Okay, everyone. So how's everyone doing? That was our full kind of navigation from how we can build QuickBooks Online as the core of our accounting system to which version is best for us. So hopefully we answered that question. If you still have a question around that, ask. And then ultimately we wanted to wrap it up with, where do you get things done inside of QuickBooks Online? Karina, did you want to share something before we get into wrap up mode?
Yes, Mariette. Well, we did have one question that I wanted to address, submitted before registration. And I'll go ahead and read it here.
Yep.
I'm a small business single member LLC. How do I show my salary to myself quarterly or monthly so that I can present it for my cash flow or income financials when getting a loan or mortgage?
Yes, I love that question. Number one, the fact that you're thinking about that is huge. Ultimately, what you're going to be doing is based on, you said you were a single member LLC. It really, number one, depends on whether you have elected to be a corporation as well. So either an S Corp, in that, let's say that example, then you would be on salary and you'd be paying yourself a payroll, and you'd be able to pull those payroll reports right out of QuickBooks if you're using QuickBooks for payroll. If you are actually a single member LLC and you're a sole proprietorship, meaning you're self-employed, you're essentially just drawing money out of your profits. And that's even more reason why you're going to want to have all of your data very clear inside of QuickBooks Online, so you can see your income statement, your profit and loss statement, see what that profitability is, and make sure you are paying yourself out of the business, but you're not paying yourself salary in that case. You're actually drawing out of the profits. So it's a great question. It's definitely a question you're going to want to be working with your accounting professional with. I mean, I even have a workshop tomorrow, a free workshop called Pay Yourself First, to teach people how to pay themselves, because many self-employed individuals do not know how to pay themselves out of their business. So it's an excellent question. And the numbers are inside of QuickBooks Online if you're putting in the right data in QuickBooks Online. And what you would do is essentially work with a professional accountant or an accounting professional to essentially pull the reports out, so that way you can see the proper numbers on those reports. That's an excellent question, by the way. So thank you so much for that. Okay, So I'm going to start wrapping it up. Again, if there's any last minute questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A. If you have any thoughts about today's session, feel free to put it in the chat. And I'm going to start wrapping us up now because we only have a couple of minutes. So let's do this. The first thing I want to share, as always, is that we are so grateful to be here with our teams here with the AWBC and Intuit. And because of that, we have an amazing discount for you, which I'm going to show you also a way to access that, which I'm really excited about. You also have a QR code right inside of your resources. When you get your handouts, you have a nice big QR code. Just take a picture with that on your phone, or you can access that link directly in our resources. We actually have hyperlinks, so you can click on that to get access to that. But let me show you a much easier way to access that right now. And so if you go to the awesome QuickBooks branded page, it's a QuickBooks and AWBC branded page. I'm sure Karina will drop that real quick in the chat. We actually, well, not we, okay? I feel like it's we because I'm part of the team. They have an amazing page already literally done for you. If you go to this awbc.org/QuickBooks, you actually have already the discount right there. You would actually go to that page and click on enjoy 30% for 12 months. You get 30% off for 12 months of your choice of the software. That's awesome, by the way, guys. You won't be able to find that anywhere else. So, and I'm not selling you on it. I'm being honest. If you come to me, I couldn't give you that discount. So there you go. And so you can actually choose. Now you all could choose your version of QuickBooks and get 30% off for 12 months. And by the way, you actually get a 30-day free trial first. So first you get to try it for 30 days, and then you could choose the version that best fits you. Super awesome. The other thing I also wanted to share, which is really cool, is that they've really made an effort on this page with thank you, Karina, and thank you, Corinne and Anna, for like building the resources that are going to continuously help us grow and thrive. There's content on this page. There's the how to start a business playbook. I love that playbook. They designed that last year. I believe Karina even will provide some type of learning content after this session that you all can get access to these really cool YouTube videos and other learning content that Intuit provides. You'll also have access when you come back to this page after today's webinar, any other future learnings that they are doing and partnering with Intuit, all of that will be on this page. So just thank you, Karina, Corinne, and the AWBC team for really keeping us on top of all of this and making our lives really easy when it comes to just accessing it directly. We all want to just be able to have direct and easy access, right? So, okay, everyone, I am going to look at the Q&A once more because I see a little bit of action in there. So thank you for that. And then I'm going to start wrapping us up because I'm mindful of our time and I want you all to continue along your day. So let's see here. Okay, Karina, thank you for dropping the link. Nicole, this was a great chat. Thank you, Nicole, for being here. Thank you, Karina, for mentioning our next session. So she's already teasing our next session on March 17th. I'm going to have Karina jump into and say goodbye. I just want to make sure there's anything I can answer. I think we're good. So Karina, you want to close us up?
Okay, yes, I know we're about a minute past the time, so I'll make this super quick. Thank you everyone for joining. Mariette, you're always so thorough and vibrant and fun. So thank you for speaking today with us. And like I said, all of these materials and the recording of the session will be sent over to your email within the next day or so. So keep an eye out for that. And the next event, which will be part of the series, will be on March 17th. So I dropped that link in the chat there. And no, it's only one event, Philippe. So I'll have to check on that link that you sent. But other than that, thank you everyone for joining and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.